policies that will require you to do clerical duties, policies that will want you to be away from your family, and policies that are intimidating. I wish to bring to your attention, maybe if you didn't know, maybe you know, just to remind you, that when issues come up and their education involved, teachers should be involved. Of the 247, 9 died, and as we speak, about 42 have not been reinstated. So we want an environment where we are allowed to speak, we are allowed to talk in policy formulation. So that is that part where our voices need to be heard. And I wish to bring to your attention that when we have unions, unions are not there to fight the government. They are there to agree with the government for the better welfare of the workers. So as I speak this afternoon, I don't know if our NAT, our KUPPET, was invited, and if they are there, then they are silent. They are silent. They are not speaking for the Kenyan teacher. So for that reason, a pressure group came up, led by myself. Fortunately or unfortunately, we spoke up against punitive policies, resulting in our punitive transfers. Because I'm calling it punitive, if it is not punitive, why was a government vehicle driven to my small school, to a classroom teacher, to deliver the transfer letter? So we don't want punitive policies in the education sector. Last but not least, I know I have a lot to speak, and this education forum, Your Excellency, I would request that teachers should visit you. Unfortunately, it is a working day. I'm even scared. Maybe from here I'll not be having my job, because we are not supposed to be here on a working day, though I'm having a permission, but somebody may change the story simply because I'm in Kenya Kwanza. So what I'm saying as I wind up, our first speaker talked about it. And Mr. Indimuli, I appreciate you for talking about it. There is this animal, the big elephant in the house, delocalization. I'm going to give you 3 instances, and I'm going to give my own example where we are together, and because of the nature of the other spouse's job, is already delocalized, working at the border of Kenya and Somalia. And so we agree as a family, but since my job does not allow me to be in one station, remain behind, take care of the children. When I have an off, I'll be Uganda. Where are the children left? With no father, with no mother. So this is a teacher whose salary is on loan and has to maintain 4 homes. Why am I saying 4 homes? I'm in Mount Elgon. My spouse is at the border of Kenya and Somalia. My children are in Nairobi because I have a candidate that I cannot move because he's already registered, and I have a rural home to take care. So even in Mount Elgon, I doubt if I'm effective. The second instance is of a teacher. So when I give my own example, I'm speaking for hundreds of thousands of other teachers. The second instance is a teacher who has been working for the commission for more than 3.5 decades. Today, she goes to the hospital using a medical cover that has been initiated by the employer. She is misdiagnosed. She is overdosed. Because of those 2 reasons, her condition moves from hypo to hyper, life-threatening. When she raises that issue, she is transferred to the border of Kenya and Tanzania. And this teacher, in her previous school, she lives 200 meters away from the school, where she cannot even walk. She uses a taxi. So today you are telling her to go and struggle that other end of the republic. And we are feeling the commission is not keeping to its policy of taking care of the aged, taking care of the health. Last but not least, as I sit down, and just as I've said, we need time to talk to you and the Kenya Kwanza government as teachers. A teacher is taken from Murang'a, and the teacher is taken to Narok South. The husband is taken from Murang'a and is taken to Masinga. Masinga is in Machakos, yes? And so what happens? The teacher goes to class and leaves the baby. She has gone to take care of the Kenyan children and has left her child in the house. So she gets a call to come back home. Your Excellency, I want you to picture this. When she gets home, she finds the neighbor's dogs have mauled her baby. So this is a teacher who is working for Kenyan children, but is unable to take care of the child. Next, she goes on maternity leave and decides that since my baby has gotten a mark, let me leave the baby with my mother-in-law. So she goes on maternity leave and comes back to report to work, only to find everything in her house is gone. Hana hata sufuria. Your Excellency, when your government comes in, we want you to look at such policies. This is killing the teachers. She was with the baby at the education office, trying to plead with the officers to take her back to her town, or even to allow her to go and join the husband. And the baby was crying. And I told her, why don't you breastfeed the baby? And she told me, Mwalimu, stress, hata maziwa imekauka. So, Your Excellency, Kenya Kwanza government, as we reorient and re-engineer the education sector, without the teachers' welfare, then we will be doing nothing. Thank you very much. We have been sitting for long before you ask me the question. I would love everybody to stand up as a teacher so that maybe we just rejuvenate. Yeah. Yes, kidogo. Yeah, and I am a teacher of music, and I'm going to teach us the musical club. And so when we rejuvenate, then Your Excellency, you can ask questions. And if there are no questions, I'll be glad to sit down. So the musical club is Kalabanda. Yeah, when I say Kalabanda, you do 1, 2, 3, okay? Kalabanda, Kalabanda, Señorita. Yeah, that one continues now on and on, like 6 or 7 times. Kalabanda, Kalabanda, Señorita. Thank you very much. And I am a great manifestation of bottoms up. Today, the classroom teacher is talking to the people at the top, not the people at the top speaking downwards. Thank you very much. May God bless you.
Mwalimu.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your presentation. I have just 2 small questions. Number 1, I asked my friend in Dimuli, but he scattered around and didn't answer it.
Yes, sir.
The splitting of teacher families. Wewe ni mama, bwanako ni mwalimu, you are teaching the same school, then you are split and sent to different directions.
Yes.
Does it affect your performance as teachers?
Yes.
Number 2, or rather, is there any handicap in your performance in being a couple in the same school?
Okay, the answer to question 1 is yes. When we are separated, there is a lot of problems, and I'll give an example. I want to mention here in this forum that the National Pressure Group did their research, and between December 23rd and March 22nd, 22 teachers had committed suicide.
Because of separation?
Because of separation. And the worst of that, I know death is death, but the one that touched our hearts was of this lady teacher who killed herself alongside her daughter. Why? The husband is working away, she's working away. Na hii mwili ni mwili tu, si ndio? Si itataka iko na joto. So she ended up, or whatever happened, and it happened that the man discovered that the baby hakukuwa wake, alikuwa wa mtu huko. So how does she solve the problem? She kills herself alongside the baby. So 3 were head teachers, 2 were deputies, and the rest were teachers.
Thank you. We'll look into that. The last one.
Yes, sir.
I support affirmative action for the girl child. I have daughters, I have sons. But I get this distinct impression that the boy child is now neglected and is not talked about and is being left behind. What are your thoughts?
And that is why when I was giving our first recommendation, I said, we give sanitary towels to the girls, which has been there, but Kenya Kwanza should continue with it. But there is this question, as I'm distributing these pads in the classroom, then the boys ask me, teacher, na sisi unatupea nini? So can we also take care of the boy child? Maybe our first recommendation, I say, as we give the pads, we give boys boxers. Yeah, Kenya Kwanza, maybe you'll be the first government to take care of this boy child, so that your violence wako nayo kidogo ipunguke. Thank you.
Okay, Mwalimu.
Yes, sir.
I think you have spoken with a lot of clarity and example on what delocalization is doing to families.
Yes.
So your recommendation, what do you think of what we are suggesting? We are suggesting that teachers are a national resource. They should be able to teach everywhere. But maybe we should do the nationalization at the employment, at the point of employment. And then subsequently, we can also make it possible for teachers to teach outside their counties or localities, and maybe provide an incentive for that. What do you think about that? Do you think that will solve the challenge we have that is currently causing havoc with families on the matter of delocalization?
Your Excellency, I want to agree with you that just as the first speaker said, I was very keen on that because I'm affected, I'm a victim. Teachers are a national resource, and they should be able to work, just as the speaker said, at the point of employment, at the point of management. But my opinion is, am I willing? Because I've seen that, you see, when you give me that incentive, am I willing? There is need for me to apply, that I want to go and work in Turkana. Because if I go to Turkana, there is something that comes with it. It should not be punitive. It should not be forced. It should not be made to look like somebody is misusing power and abusing the offices that they hold. By using that, because for the 18 cases, it was used as a punishment. And now that you have brought it, Your Excellency, immediately you get into office, please take us back to our station so that we can be effective.
Okay. Thank you very much. And so it shall be.
Amen.
So, secondly,
Yes, sir.
you've spoken exhaustively about the relationship between teachers and their employer,
Yes, sir.
and what seems to be a stick and stick relationship.
Yes, sir.
That if you don't do this, we
that.
do this. If
Yeah.
you don't do this, you do this. So, so your suggestion is that we need to normalize relations between the teachers' unions and the employer, and promote a greater understanding between these two entities.
Yes.
And we should not punish teachers for speaking their mind
Yes.
in the formal setup of what is provided for in the law, the teachers' unions and the other industrial players.
Yes.
And which I quite support, because it's a constitutional provision, it's an international provision that teachers are allowed. It's a constitutional guaranteed right to be part of a union. So, what would be the form in your suggestion? What would we do as government? Teacher Service Commission is an independent commission. What do you think we should do to make sure that we improve the relationship between teachers and their employer?
Thank you, sir. And before I answer that question, I wish to ask, how independent is independent? Yeah, how independent is independent? Is it independent to frustrate the workers? So, in my opinion, as it stands now, teachers are professionals. And professionals cannot have several voices speaking on their behalf. So one, we need one union. A union that is not compromised. A union that will speak for the teachers, not for the employer. A union that will be led by teachers, because as it stands now, I'm sorry to say, our unions, most of the officials are head teachers. Na huwezi kutuma mbuzi kwa koti ya afisi. Definitely, they will eat the mbuzi. So, as I stand here, myself and other teachers have made several applications for unions, and we are receiving negative report. So what I want us to do is to have a working relationship. Let us, as an employer, the employer should not go personal. If I have wronged the employer, this is a union serving the others. They should not go personal. So we should discuss the issues of those bodies we are representing. That is my opinion. And it will be very wrong, colleague teachers who are present, that today we are discussing the welfare of teachers, and I failed to mention one, Honorable Sosion. We miss you. We miss you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So maybe just by way of asking, I thought the leadership of the union is elected by teachers. So where is the disconnect? Because you seem to be saying the union as it is now is speaking more for the employer than for the teachers.
Yes.
Is that the case?
Because I will clarify, they came on a platform where they were conditioned. And so for them to have the taps opened, they had to withdraw everything. So we are looking at that union as a union that is speaking for themselves because of money. They're not speaking for teachers. They withdrew all the cases, and that's why you are having this tussle of TPD. Because TPD had been stopped in court. And immediately it was withdrawn, it was rolled out. And what was the feeling of the teachers? Mr. President, let me call you so. How would you feel if today you go back home and you found Mama Rachel in your house, on your bed, with another man? That is exactly what teachers felt when we saw our union leaders accompanying the employer to roll out TPD. So what did we say? They are romancing the employer on the teacher's matrimonial bed. We are not happy. So, teachers, representatives should not be compromised, should speak for the teachers, and if TSC is independent, they should be able to work with anybody who is elected in that office. And I would also wish to let you know why we have so many head teachers in those offices. They have the financial muscle. So if I go there, you know, politics ya walimu sio kama hii unaenda juu ya gari. We do our politics in the staff room. So if I can buy more milk and bread in that staff room, I'll be elected. And if I only have a cup of tea, which is very long, you know, in Luya land where I'm married, when the tea is very long, they don't like it. So if you go in a staff room and you give very long tea, you might just miss the votes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mwalimu.
Indeed, Madam Kalabanda has made us proud, and she has made us awake. For the ones who were behind there, they were asleep, but now everyone is awake. Thank you, Madam. Your Excellency, before we finish, I kindly ask 1 minute of your time to call Dr. Murage Dominic, who is the chair of lecturer. Just 1 minute, I will not go away. I will just be standing here. Just 1 minute.
Applied, because it does not cater for a postgraduate student. It only assumes that the universities are there teaching undergraduate student. Therefore, nobody is funding the postgraduate student through the formula. So, Your Excellency, when you come in the next 1 month or so, please check that. Otherwise, our universities are going to grad into a halt, because there's a huge crisis. We are not talking about it. The country is like, is okay. The Auditor General, you must have seen, he has already said that most of public universities are technically insolvent. It's all over, and it's like, it is okay. Nobody is even speaking about it. So please, look at the funding in our universities. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Your Excellency, all protocol observed. We say thank you for giving chance the teachers and the lecturers who have it's my time to welcome Mheshimiwa Moses Wetangula to carry on with the remaining program. Welcome, Mheshimiwa.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, our incoming President, Honorable Mudavadi, Honorable Sosion, and all the leaders in the education sector here present. It has been a very rich, interactive, informative, and educative session. I want to salute all of you here, particularly those of you in public employment, like Indimuli and Mother, for taking courage to come here, because there are forces of regression out there that would not want you to interact with us. That you have been here to talk to us and engage with us is a patriotic and courageous act that we salute you. But all this will be over in a very short while. Excellency, yesterday I traveled from Eldoret with one gentleman who heads a sector that came to see you, and he showed me messages of extreme intimidation from a very senior officer in the office of the president. And I'm sure it would happen to many of you. But it's never for the faint-hearted. We have to be courageous, we have to be committed for us to cross the Rubicon. And once you cross the Rubicon in the Roman days, you either came back with victory or you died there. So we've crossed the Rubicon, and we must come back with victory. Education is key to the growth and modernization of any country. And in Kenya, we are proud that we have a very strong human resource development. What we need is to engineer how to put that resource to change our country. In Kenya Kwanza, we have sufficient knowledge, commitment, and capacity to change this country. And nothing will happen without the education sector. Whether you are an engineer, you are a product of a teacher. Whether you are a doctor, you are a product of a teacher. Whether you are an astronaut, you are a product of a teacher. Everybody is socially engineered by the education sector. And once we focus on what we want to do, this country will be a major source of human resource export to our neighbors. When I was your foreign minister, we started a program that is ongoing very successfully of exporting our nurses and health sector personnel to Botswana, to Rwanda, and to other African countries. Today, the health sector of Botswana is literally run by Kenyans. I went to the Isle of Man for a meeting and I fell unwell. I was taken to a top-level hospital and I was attended by a Kenyan girl who was working there as a medic. And these are replicated everywhere. So our government, led by our captain, will take into account everything we have said here. But more importantly, we must, Your Excellency, bring sanity and eventually harmony between the Teacher Service Commission and the teaching fraternity. Because the Commission has abandoned its role good employer and behaves like a bad policeman to its own employees. And all this runs through when you have the man with chains as the head of the trade unions in the country and behaves the way he behaves, then you can understand how others get treated badly and nobody can speak for them. So Sion here has been hounded out of office through the same machinations. So I want to finish by urging you in the education sector, that we have challenges. When you go out there, many people are talking very excitedly about what changes they require in the education sector. As we continue this conversation, I'll be open-eared to keep listening to what you as practitioners in the sector would want to engineer and re-engineer the CBC program to get broad-based acceptability from both parents, teachers, and everybody else, so that we move together. Lastly, we give you our solemn promise that this is not a rhetorical engagement. This is serious talk. With serious commitment, we want to change this country. We were born here, we've grown up here, and the challenges that you have talked about here are the challenges we feel, we know, and we have experienced. And together, we can make it happen. Mwalimu Nyerere always said, everything can be done, provided each one of us does their part. You do your part, we shall do our part, together we shall succeed. Thank you, and may I now invite the Honorable Musalia Mudavadi to also make a few remarks and give it to our captain to crown the day. Long live the teaching profession. Long live the desire for acquiring more and more knowledge by Kenyans. Thank you.
Thank you, Moses. His other nickname is Baba Waroma. And he's usually very eloquent. So in Kiluya we say, this man speaks too much Lusungo. Yeah, members of the education fraternity who are here, first of all, let me just join my remarks to those of Wetangula and Professor Munavo and the others to say we really appreciate those of you who are able to put us together today to be able to have this conversation. We really salute you because education is a very, very critical sector. We get it right there, we are likely to get many other things correct as we move forward. There are a few things that I just want to highlight. One is that we must continue to invest in education. There is this famous quotation where they say, if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. So, as a commitment, as Kenya Kwanza, we will continue to focus and we shall improve on the utilization of resources so that our children, who are the bedrock of what we want to achieve, whether industrialization or whatever, that they are properly educated at all times. This is absolutely critical. Listening to Madam Amolo here and others, we have also seen what the cost of lack of dialogue can do. When a leadership becomes detached from the people, when a leadership thinks that every message must be through a trickle-down process, the consequences can be severe. I stand here as one of the people, jointly with the Wetangula and indeed our Deputy President, who is our flag bearer for Kenya Kwanza, to speak to one thing. When we were talking about or building up towards the current constitution, 2010 constitution, In Naivasha, we were among the 3 proponents who really fought to make sure that the Teacher Service Commission becomes a constitutional commission, so that it can have independence and can be embedded in our laws, so that the welfare of teachers can be guaranteed at all times. And it was being pushed by NAT to make sure that we have it as a constitutional entity. Because at that time, there was the debate that Teacher Service Commission should actually be dismantled, so that since we are embracing devolution, every county can then find a way of dealing with the employment of its teachers in the county. And we realized that that would have been extremely difficult under the circumstances that we were in. So we fought and we stood for the entrenchment of the Teacher Service Commission in the Constitution. Little did we know that some have thought that it was a license to suppress the teachers. Because it seems that is the tag that they now have. We shall correct it from the 9th of August this year. There is nobody who has driven this point home better than the lady who has spoken. If there's anybody who is watching, because I think this thing is so important, the Deputy President programmed that it must be streamed live so that people can understand what is going on here. If anybody has been watching and listening and you are not touched by the testimony that we have seen here, then you must be extremely inhuman and you must be of a different race, because the issues are very touchy. We need also in the education to make sure that we strengthen the partnership, because I am also a strong proponent of the private sector, and that is what Kenya Kwanza also stands for, that we must build a strong partnership between the public sector and the private sector. After all, you are producing talent for also the private sector. So we would look at incentives. For instance, if there are internships, we can create incentives through taxation. If Safaricom or Kenya Breweries or any other organization can guarantee that they are doing so much in terms of internship every year, this can be factored in and it can be converted into a tax benefit so that we can have more employers taking up other people for internships. These are issues that we can revisit and we can develop as policy working together. Finally, that when Kibaki took over, he came out with his 2030 vision. That was around, he took over in 2002. Now we are in 2022. So effectively, that vision has got a shelf life, in theory, of only 8 years, and it's done. Now, as we talk about the education and the program, beyond this forum today, I think we should start thinking seriously about a 2060 vision, or even beyond, incorporating the views that you have made and taking into account what you have talked about, the emphasis around the skills council, Everybody has really emphasized on this. We can start working on this basis and look futuristic and be futuristic so that we start preparing for that great movement that we want to be able to achieve in terms of job creation, in terms of technology and innovation. So ladies and gentlemen, this has been an extremely important gathering. Yesterday, the DP led us into a conversation with the people with disabilities, which partly were touched on here, that we have not focused a lot around there. We also realized that we are on a learning curve in terms of the special needs of our country. So bringing all this together in the final policy documents that we shall have will really show a commitment from Kenya Kwanza that we want to be a government, and we shall be a government that listens, that dialogues, and then implements. That is what we want to do. So before I sit, Sosion, you are recognized as somebody who has suffered the vagaries of a certain institution. Maybe this is a consolation moment. You may want to say something before I call the Deputy President.
Yeah, indeed, I've not suffered. I paid the price of speaking the truth, which is a fruition today that we have renaissance in education, Your Excellency, the 5th, of reopening for dialogue. Your Excellency, sir, and together with the leadership of the various parties, this is a turning point in the history of education in this country. I'm saying so because Professor Paulo Freire, in his book, Democracy and Education, he defined education in another aspect, that education is dialogue. And when we conduct education in the process of dialogue in this way, we will never go wrong. I wish to remind everybody that Kenya, for the last couple of years, has been #1 at the top in terms of global competitiveness in education, both in quality and access. But because of these reforms that are not negotiated, we are now at #7. I want to tell all Kenyans, particularly teachers, and I can see KUPPET are here. I know they are here. Members of KUPPET, if you can wave a bit. Members of KUPPET, if you can wave a bit, they are here. Don't be intimidated. Members of NAT, if you are here, yes, and all of them are here. So the way to go is dialogue. And if we are at #7, we can come back up to #1 from this beginning. Your Excellency, we want to wish you well. And I would not wish to talk a lot. Everything has been discussed through this entire process, and the rest of the business will be during 9th of August. Once we elect you as the 5th president, I want to believe you are going to support the entire education system through this process of consultation, not just stakeholders consultation, but public participation and consultation in education for the public good. I've liked the commitment you've given even with the CBC, that then in line with UNESCO recommendations, you are going to allow further consultation, and I think that is the best thing to do. And once that is done, we will get it right. We wish you well, and I now want to appeal to all teachers in the country. You have no reason not to vote William Samoei Ruto as the 5th President of the Republic of Kenya. And by that statement, there is nothing wrong. If we as teachers who are progressive, those in the classrooms, and who believe in a good future, we have a God-given opportunity. The way we had with Kibaki, another Kibaki has come in the name of William Samoei Ruto. And therefore, without fear, let us campaign for Kenya Kwanza and its presidential candidate, and I'm sure through this process, we will run education system in a better way. Thank you, and may God bless all of us.
Thank you. Just before the Deputy President comes forward, Indimuli talked a lot about capitation. 60 billion, did I read right? 60 billion of the capitation funds. She cannot access that detail to have a proper audit and to know whether the resources have been used properly or not. speaks volumes about the need for us to become more accountable and transparent in our dealings. Mr. Deputy President, the floor is yours. Ladies and gentlemen, can we rise up briefly and welcome the Deputy President to make his remarks.
Asante sana. Thank you very much, my brother Musalia Mudavadi. Let's take our seats. First, let me take this opportunity to thank Professor Munavu, who was the chair of this education subsector, and they have worked tirelessly, I think for the last almost 4 months. They've been at this education subject. Professor Nkanya, my good brother Sosion, and all the other people who have participated. Professor Nguru, who is, I don't know whether he's here, but he's always been part of this team. And finally, I think we have come to the conclusion of this very important subject. And as I said earlier, this is going to be probably the most important conversation going into this election as we discuss about the economy and as we discuss about bottom-up. It is the single most important enabler for what we are going to do as a government, and therefore it must benefit from our intervention in a very significant and very profound, if I say, very profound way. We have listened to the stakeholders who have spoken. I know there are some who already put in their recommendations and memoranda, and they have been processed by the team led by Professor Munavu. Maybe I can just highlight a few areas that we have already taken a commitment as the Kenya Kwanza team. We have undertaken to the country that because we want our commitment to be different from commitments that have been made in the past, that number one, we are going to engage the public. And I have said, as I said earlier, we've gone through the mill in every fora that we have attended around Kenya, and we have gone to close to 37 counties. We have listened to what teachers, we have listened to what lecturers, we've listened to what stakeholders are saying, and even students. And today here we have finally come to the final conversation. Let me just say a few things as I have listened on, and Dimuli and his team have spoken to this, that we all agree that our education should move in the direction of not just knowledge and exams. It should move in the direction of knowledge, skills, competencies, and value-based education. We all agree that that is the direction. We also agree that 5 years down the road, it's time to review, in accordance with UNESCO recommendations, the CBC program, so that the issues that have been identified by teachers, by parents, by students, and other stakeholders can be subjected to a robust public conversation, so that we can finally have a conversation that will lead us to ironing out the areas that are in contestation, and we can have an education system that serves our children and our requirements for the future. We have also undertaken, as Kenya Kwanza, that in accordance with, again, UNESCO recommendations on education being more than just being in a classroom. It is in the context of culture, is in the context of communities, it's in the context of customs, and that being the case, we have two things as Kenya Kwanza that we want to undertake, that we will have a proactive support for citizens or students from marginalized areas, northeastern and other marginalized areas that do not today have adequate teachers, that we will promote, we will actively provide bursaries, and we will actively provide opportunities for people from those areas, northeastern included, to join our teaching institutions and colleges so that we can promote the number of teachers coming from those areas as a means to enhancing the number of teachers from those areas, and Kenyans from other areas who go to teach in those areas will be incentivized so that they can provide teaching in those areas. We also undertake that we are going to abolish the delocalization policy as is set up now and replace it with a program that will appreciate that teachers are a national resource, and at the level of entry in employment, the nationalization agenda will be implemented at that level, and subsequently an incentive will be made available so that teachers who voluntarily want to teach outside their counties and outside their localities can be paid an allowance in promoting the national nature of our teachers, so that we can remove the current distress that is facing families and teachers who we have been given horror stories about, some of them committing suicide and that kind of thing. We have also agreed that to improve on access and quality of education, we will implement a minimum essential package for schools that have low enrollment, so that all the schools will provide the same quality of education irrespective of size. So that, and in that process, we will make it possible for even the small schools to provide the same quality of education as the big schools, and therefore create additional access where parents don't have to go looking for boarding schools or don't have to squeeze in what they call big schools because they offer a better quality of education. We will make sure that that same quality of education is available even in the small schools, so that we can encourage enrollment, especially in day schools. We also commit, as the Kenya Kwanza fraternity, that we will have a special service tariff for water, for electricity, for internet in all our learning institutions. Again, this will assist in making education affordable. We have also committing that we will work with the County Government Act so that we can make it possible for counties to deploy their resources in building schools where the public is of the opinion that their priorities is in building schools. Though the building of primary and secondary schools is the responsibility of national government, we're going to work out a mechanism so that it is possible for county governments to build schools where such is the requirement of the local communities there. We have also agreed that the current teacher continuous professional development program, which we support as enhancing the quality of delivery of education, and is a requirement that the quality of education is dependent on how much we equip the teacher with professional skills. But that improvement of professional skills will be funded by the government of Kenya instead of being funded by teachers. We also undertake as the Kenya Kwanza fraternity that it is necessary for us to build the capacity of teachers, as I have said, but also of managers of our teaching institutions, from primary schools through secondary schools, through TVET, all the way to university, that there will be courses for people who are managers in our school institutions or learning institutions, and we are going to convert the current Kenya Education Management Institute into a Kenya School of Education, in line with the Kenya School of Government, so that we have an institution that concentrates on ensuring that there is continuous professional development of teachers, and there is available professional expertise and education, professional equipment of our managers of our learning institutions, right from primary schools, secondary schools, and TVETs and universities, so that we can better manage our learning institutions. And there should be professional courses to enable persons hired to manage our institutions to do them better. We have also agreed that, acknowledging the current teacher shortage and the impact it is having on the quality of our education and the delivery of our education, that the Kenya Kwanza administration will, in 2 phases, year 1 and year 2, eliminate the gap that currently exists of 116,000 teachers. We will hire year 1, 58,000 teachers, and year 2, the next 58,000 teachers, to close the gap that currently exists in our teaching institutions. We have already assessed how much it's going to cost. It's going to cost us about 25 billion shillings, and we will make sure that there is budgetary provision for this to happen. We also undertake that, and we had this conversation yesterday, we're going to have it in the disability charter. We also undertake that all our students or kids living with disability, we are going to enhance the bursaries, and we are going to expand the bursaries from the current 47,000. Our suggestion is that we need to double the number of students benefiting from bursaries, children living with disability. We've also, we also undertake and commit that we will complete the 250 vocational institutes in every ward, and the 52 TVET institutions that need to be built countrywide. We have built already almost 140 in the last 8 years. We believe that we can build the 52 in the next 2 years, and therefore make it possible for us to have a TVET in every constituency. And we have said that every TVET, alongside every TVET, we will build industrial parks, ensuring that the entire Jualakali sector and industrial parks become part of our TVET infrastructure. Let me say two final things. That as Mwalimu Murage, Professor Murage has said here, we cannot continue to bury our heads in the sand. We have a crisis in our universities, and we have our crisis in our TVET institutions, which we must deal with. And the crisis is the underfunding of these institutions. Statistics show that of the requirements in our university education, we are funding both from University Funding Board and Higher Education Loans Board. We are funding up to almost 55% of what their requirements are. And there is no mechanism that is in place at the moment on how the 45% funding shortage is going to be mitigated or is going to be raised. And therefore, we are proposing, and this is the position of Kenya Kwanza, that to be able to, number one, effectively fund the courses in our institutions of higher learning, TVET and university, to be able to be effective in terms of funding, and to be able also to be targeted so that we fund the courses that have been assessed to be the ones that will influence our development trajectory going into the future. We are going to consolidate the University Funding Board, the TVET Funding Board, and the Higher Education Loans Board into the National Skills and Funding Council, as was recommended here. Let me repeat. We are going to consolidate the University Funding Board, the TVET Funding Board, and the Higher Education Loans Board into one body that is going to not only inform what are the skills that we want to deploy going forward, and also fund those skills in our TVET and universities in Kenya by forming the National Skills and Funding Council. That will make it possible for us to predict adequate funding for all the courses that will be taught in our universities, so that we improve on the quality, because if you need 100% to teach a certain course and you have only provided 57%, then it means the balance, since the university doesn't have the money, you pay 57% of salaries as is being done in Egerton, and somebody who has been paid half his salary, if you expect them to deploy their whole skill there, is expecting too much. Secondly, we will cut, universities will cut corners. And finally, we will reduce or we will lower the quality of our graduates. I do not think that's the way the country wants to go. So we have concrete interventions that we are suggesting and that will be implemented by Kenya Kwanza. And finally, as has been recommended here, we will raise our research fund from the current 0.8% to 2% as is required by the law. So, ladies and gentlemen, this discussion could not have been better. I think we have gotten the best brains, and I want to thank the men and women who have spent 4 months working on this document and benefiting from the input of the many fora that we have attended across the country, and of course the discussion we've had here this afternoon. With those many remarks, I think we will ask somebody to read out the charter, and then that charter, we are going to sign it here so that we are on a footing of taking the country to the next level. Karibu, Madam.